Hello, this is Sarah, the Healthy Home Economist, and today I'm going to show you, all of you out there who want to know how to make kombucha, how to do it. You've heard of kombucha, maybe you haven't. Let me give you a little brief history of it. I myself have been making kombucha at home for almost 9 years now, and I've been making it continuously for 9 years. I've never had a break. We love it so much in my house that even when we go on vacations, I make sure that my culture stays alive while we're gone, so that when we can get back, I take up with the brewing process again. It's a very beneficial drink. It's a traditional drink that originated in China hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It might even be thousands of years ago. I'm not sure about the timing exactly, but it was a very long time ago, and eventually made its way to Russia. Russia actually gets the credit for kombucha, but actually it did originate in China. Back in the when the Iron Curtain was still up, and back during when the Soviet Union hadn't broken up yet, Soviet republics and the Soviet Union actually used kombucha as part of their Olympic training, because one of the benefits of kombucha is it clears lactic acid out of the muscles very, very quickly, and the Olympic athletes who were training used to drink up to a quart of kombucha a day to clear the lactic acid out of their muscles so that they would not be so sore, so they could actually train harder every day than if they didn't drink the kombucha. And so anyway, I'm going to talk now about how to actually make the kombucha. Before you start, you need to go to the store and get some basic things, and you need to have them on hand ready to go when you get your kombucha culture, and I'll talk about that in just a second. First of all, you're going to need some 4-quart Pyrex bowls. Walmart has them. I've seen them at Target. They're, I don't know, $10 or so each. I think I got these 9 years ago. I got these, I think, for $4 or $5 each, and I'm still using them today. I think they're more expensive now, though. Make sure you get a couple of these. And then the next thing you're going to need is some sort of a wooden utensil. Don't use metal when you're making your kombucha. It is rumored that metal will reduce the strength of your culture, so whenever you're handling your culture or the starter, make sure you don't use metal utensils, because that can weaken your culture over time. And your goal is to have your culture last an entire lifetime. My original culture has lasted now almost 9 years, and there's no need to ever get a new culture once you start brewing kombucha. That's the ideal situation. So make sure you do everything in your power to keep your culture strong through the years. And you can certainly, as your culture grows and reproduces, you can give it away to other people so they can start making kombucha too. So use wood utensils with your kombucha when you're making kombucha. You're also going to need white sugar. Now you might ask, well, why in heaven's name are you using white sugar? Well, don't worry, the sugar is used up during the fermentation process, so there's not going to be any white sugar left in the final brew. And I'll talk more about that later. You're going to see as the fermentation goes on, the color of the brew actually changes as the sugar is used up. So don't worry about that. You can actually use other forms of sweetener. Honey was traditionally used in China to make kombucha. If you want to use honey, you can certainly do that. Just be aware that it does take longer to ferment the brew. On normal brew time is anywhere between 7 to 10 days, depending on the time of year. It's shorter brew time in the summer and longer brew time in the winter time. So just be aware of that. If you want to use honey, though, you can. You're going to need some tea. I would suggest that you get organic tea, because non-organic tea has high levels of fluoride in it. So please get yourself organic tea. And you're going to need green and you're going to need black. I know some recipes just use black. I use half and half because I find that has a more pleasing flavor to the end brew. So that's my recommendation. You're also going to need a kombucha culture. And you can see here, here's the actual kombucha culture. Looks like a big pancake. This is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeasts that ferment the tea and the sugar in the water into the final product, which takes, I think it tastes like apple cider actually, a cross between apple cider and ginger ale. It's very pleasing, a very tasty brew, and you need some sort of a fermentation culture, and this is what you have. Now, where can you get it? If you have any friends who cook traditionally, you can probably get one of these from them for free perhaps. You're also going to need some starter. This is completed kombucha. This is what kombucha looks like when it's completely brewed. And you're going to need some starter culture along with the culture itself to get your first brew going. And okay, I think I've gone over what we need. Oh, one more thing, a couple more things. You're going to need large rubber bands. Staples and Office Depot have these. I have not found them at Target or Walmart or any place like that. They just have smaller rubber bands. You need big ones. So go to Staples and Office Depot. You're also going to need white cotton towels to cover the bowl. Do not ever bleach your white cotton towels. If you've never noticed, when you bleach something, it smells like bleach, and you don't want to be covering your brew with something that has chlorine smell coming off of it. That would pollute your brew. You don't want that. So these things are going to get really stained up once you start brewing it, but don't worry about it. Just wash them. They're clean. They're just stained. Big deal. So get yourself some white. Do not get any ones with any colors in it. They have to be plain white cotton. And so you need... I get 3 or 4 of those. Walmart has them. They're called flour sackcloths. They have packs of 5 for like $2 or something. So that's a good place to get them. Okay, we've gone over everything you need. Once you have everything ready, then you're ready to brew. And what you're going to do first is bring 3 quarts of filtered water to a boil. And you can see here I've got 3 quarts of water boiling. It's already boiling. So once you've got it boiling, you're going to take take 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of white sugar per 3 quarts of filtered water. And you're going to pour your white sugar in there and stir it up till it dissolves. And then recover it and let it boil for 5 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes, and we're going to take a short break here and come back when the water is ready to go to the next step. Okay, we've now boiled our water with sugar in it, and we're going to go on to the next step, which is to put the tea in there and to ferment the tea, or not ferment the tea, steep the tea in the sugar water. So remove your pot from the heat. That's step 1. Turn off your burner. Take off the lid. Okay, so we've boiled the sugar water. We're now going to put in 2 tea bags of black tea and 2 tea bags of green tea. You can use 5 tea bags if you want. I think on my written kombucha blog I said 5 tea bags. I have since changed my recipe here that I use at home, and I'm using 4 tea bags. Okay, but I would suggest that you use half and half, because the final brew does come out to be more pleasing in flavor. You have to use at least 1 black tea bag, by the way, because the tannins that are in the black tea are required by the kombucha to ferment properly. So don't use all green tea and don't use all black tea, because it comes out kind of strong if you use all black tea. So use a blend and experiment as you use each batch. Try a different combination of teas and see what suits you best. Okay, so once you've got the tea bags in there, you're going to leave it for 10 minutes and let it steep for 10 minutes. So we're going to take another break here in the video. The 10 minutes has passed and our tea has steeped long enough in the sugar water. So now what we're going to do is remove the tea bags. So remove the tea bags and set them aside. And you're going to take this tea water and pour it into your bowl. And you see how dark this is. Look how dark this tea water is. Notice the finished kombucha, how light it is. So if you are caffeine sensitive like me, do not worry about the caffeine, because as this is fermenting, the sugar is not only used up, but the caffeine is also used up as part of the brew process. So you cannot use decaffeinated tea. Make sure you use caffeinated tea and do not worry about the caffeine in the final product, because it's not there. So the next step is, once you've poured this brewed tea, sugar tea water into the bowl, you wait until it cools. Now this could take a couple of hours. The important thing is, do not leave this overnight. You need to pretty much go to the next step as soon as this water is body temperature. A couple of hours later, and our sugar tea water is now cooled sufficiently to proceed to the next step. The next step, of course, is to put your starter in, to add your starter to the tea water, and to add your culture to the tea water. Now let me reiterate that you cannot let this sugar tea water cool too long. Don't let it cool overnight or cool more than when it gets to room temperature, more than just a few minutes after it gets to room temperature. You can do it before you get to room temperature. Like I said before, you can do it when it's about body temperature. You can move to the next step. But if you get caught up in other things, you don't get to it till it gets to room temperature, that's fine. Just make sure you don't leave it too long, because then you increase your chances of getting mold on the culture when it's fermenting, and you don't want all this time and effort to go to waste. So make sure you do it right so things come out correctly. Okay, so the next step is to pour the starter into the tea water. Now I'm using 2/3 of a cup here. The directions in most cookbooks and places will say you only need a half a cup of starter here. I use more because when you use a little bit more starter, and what starter is actually finished kombucha, so you're going to have to get this from somebody else to get started. Okay, so I use 2/3 of a cup, and the reason is if you use a little bit more starter, you increase the acidity of the starting brew and you have much lower chances of getting mold on the culture. And again, we don't want to get any mold, we don't want this batch to go bad, we don't want to waste our time because I don't want you guys to get discouraged and not do this again. So I want to make sure you do it right and get success the very first time. So I would use a little bit more starter, get 2/3 of a cup if you can. So I'm putting 2/3 of a cup into the starter. And then, of course, I'm going to take my wonderful kombucha culture, and I'm going to stir slightly just to mix in that starter. I'm going to put my kombucha culture in on the top, and you'll notice it floats. Sometimes it'll sink. Don't be concerned if it sinks. They all have different personalities. I've never quite figured it out. Sometimes usually they float. So then you're going to cover it up with your clean cotton cloth, and you're going to cover it with your large rubber band to seal it. Okay? Now you're going to take this bowl and you're going to put it somewhere in your house, not in the kitchen, because you got food particles flying all around here. You got a fruit bowl over here. You got all kinds of food particles. You don't want mold issues, so you need to put this somewhere else in your house. We use our home office on one of the shelves, kind of up high where it's not in any direct sunlight. It cannot be in a closet. It needs air. This is a living thing, this kombucha culture. It needs air just like we do. So don't shut it up in a closet in the dark or it's not going to work. So put it preferably out of direct sunlight. Maybe the top of a dresser in a guest room would be an ideal place. In the home office on a shelf, kind of up a little high, not too close to the ceiling, because remember hot air rises to the ceiling, so don't put it up too high. And do not brew it in a room with a ceiling fan on, because it won't work either. I don't know why that, I've had people tell me that over the years. I've been helping people make kombucha for many years, and I've kind of heard all the problems. So, but then you put this, like I said, in a quiet place. Try to keep it in a room where there's not too much activity. Kombucha brewing does respond to chaos in the house. If you put it in a chaotic room, you're going to get a very strong brew that doesn't taste very good. If you keep it in a room where there's not too much going on, for some reason the brew seems to taste sweeter. The brew also changes flavor based on the phases of the moon. A full moon, you will have a stronger brew than you do on a, when the moon's not around. I can't remember what that is right now, but when there's no moon, okay? So don't be surprised if the flavor of your kombucha varies from batch to batch. That's completely normal. So after about 7 days, I would say 7 to 8 days in the summertime, no less than 7 days. Don't even touch it, don't even look at it, don't move it around or you will mess up the brewing. Just leave it alone for at least 7 days. After 7 days, you can kind of lift this a little bit and look and see where you're at. And after 7 days, you should look and see, and voila, you have another kombucha culture on top. You'll have two. You'll have your original kombucha culture and a new baby will have grown on top. And when the baby is at least an eighth of an inch thick, I usually leave it until the baby is about 1/4 of an inch thick, because that's the flavor we prefer in our house. Then your kombucha culture is done. And notice how the liquid is light now. It's not dark anymore. It's changed color. And you will see that you now have the original culture and the baby. And you just remove these and put them in a bowl. Put some of your finished kombucha in there. These can never be dry. Don't ever put them in Ziploc bags in the refrigerator. You'll kill them. Just put them in a bowl. To save them until your next batch, you just put them in a bowl like this. Put some kombucha in there and recover them with a rubber band and put it in the refrigerator and leave it until you're ready to brew your next batch of kombucha, okay? With me, I usually do it right away, so I don't really have much delay, but depending how much you drink in your house, you may have some delay. So then, there you're done. You've got your kombucha. Store it only in clear glass. Only. There are no exceptions. No ceramic, there's all kinds of scams on the internet about kombucha containers. Only clear glass is acceptable. And the reason is that there's so many cleansing acids in kombucha that if you put it in a container that is not clear glass, it's going to start leaching the chemicals out of your container. Plastic, it'll leach lead and other metals out of a ceramic. It has to be in clear glass, not colored glass, clear glass. And don't risk it. And again, the cleansing acids in here is one of the reasons you drink kombucha. It's very cleansing for you, cleans your system out. It's particularly good, from what I understand from my research, at clearing estrogens out of your body. And we are all exposed to pseudoestrogens in the environment, pesticides, all these chemicals, flame retardants in our furniture, things coming out of the drywall that we breathe. They're all full of pseudoestrogens. So we're all tend to have a problem with estrogen dominance in our modern lives, and this helps you keep those estrogens at bay, flushes them out of your system. So it's a wonderful drink to have on a daily basis and include in your lifestyle. And I hope you've enjoyed this first video. I'm going to do, my next video is going to be kombucha advanced topics, and I'm going to show you how I make kombucha, because I used to make kombucha this way, and then we started drinking so much in my house that I had to come up with a way to make massive amounts at once, and I'm going to cover that in my next video. But for now, if you're just making small amounts or you're just starting out, this is the way you want to go. This is Sarah, the Healthy Home Economist, wishing you all the best in the kitchen.